The leather wallet hit the pavement with a dull thud, unnoticed in the rush of a busy autumn morning. People hurried past without a second glance, their eyes fixed on phones, coffee cups, and deadlines. But one exhausted single father stopped in his tracks. He picked it up, expecting to find a few dollars and an ID. Instead, his trembling hands discovered neatly stacked bundles of cash worth $40,000, several platinum bank cards, and documents belonging to one of the city's wealthiest businesswomen. For a brief moment, the impossible temptation stood before him. His rent was overdue, his refrigerator was almost empty, and his young son had quietly admitted the night before that he was pretending not to be hungry so his father could eat instead. No one was watching. No one would ever know. Yet the choice he made in those next few minutes would not only change one woman's life, it would reveal a secret that neither of them could have imagined. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness and second chances still exist in this world, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to Soulful Tales 2. Your support helps us bring more heartwarming stories that remind us all that hope is never truly lost. The single father was named Adrian Brooks. At 38 years old, life had carved deep lines into his face that made him appear much older. 3 years earlier, his wife had lost her battle with a sudden illness, leaving him to raise their 8-year-old son, Mason, completely alone. Every sunrise began with the same exhausting routine. Adrian prepared breakfast, packed a simple lunch, walked Mason to school, and spent the rest of the day working construction whenever jobs were available. Some weeks he found enough work to pay the bills. Other weeks he returned home with empty pockets and forced himself to smile so his son would never feel the weight of his struggles. That morning had started no differently. The landlord had left another warning notice on the apartment door. The electricity company had sent its final reminder. Mason's school had requested payment for an educational field trip that Adrian knew he could never afford. Every burden rested silently on his shoulders as he walked toward another uncertain day. When Adrian opened the wallet beneath the shade of a maple tree, his heart pounded so loudly he could barely hear the traffic around him. The money inside looked unreal. $40,000 could erase nearly every problem that had haunted him for years. It could buy groceries, pay overdue rent, replace Mason's worn-out shoes, and perhaps even allow them to move somewhere safer. For one painful moment, desperation whispered louder than conscience. Then another memory answered. He remembered his late wife once telling Mason that a person's character is measured not by what they do when life is easy, but by what they choose when nobody is watching. Adrian closed the wallet, took a deep breath, and searched for identification. The owner's name was Victoria Langston. She was the founder and CEO of one of the largest charitable foundations in the state. Adrian had heard her name on television countless times but had never imagined their lives would ever cross paths. Using the address on one of the business cards, Adrian boarded a crowded city bus and traveled nearly an hour to the downtown financial district. Towering glass buildings reflected the bright afternoon sunlight as he finally stood outside the elegant headquarters. Inside, employees looked suspiciously at the dusty construction worker wearing faded jeans and worn boots. Several assumed he was lost. Without saying much, Adrian simply placed the wallet on the reception desk. Within seconds the entire office erupted into confusion. Security personnel rushed over. Executives hurried from elevators. Then Victoria herself appeared. She was in her early 40s, dressed in a cream-colored business suit, carrying herself with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to solving impossible problems every day. Yet the instant she recognized the wallet, relief flooded across her face. Every dollar was still inside. Nothing was missing. She stared at Adrian with disbelief. Most people would have disappeared forever. Instead, this exhausted father had crossed the city simply to return something that could have transformed his own life. Victoria offered an enormous reward. Adrian gently refused. He accepted only enough money to cover the bus fare home. His simple act of honesty left everyone speechless. As Adrian quietly walked away, Victoria couldn't stop thinking about him. She had spent years meeting wealthy investors, politicians, and influential leaders, yet very few possessed the quiet integrity she had just witnessed in a struggling stranger. Curiosity settled into her heart. Who was this man? Why would someone obviously facing hardship refuse such a life-changing reward? Unable to let the question go, Victoria instructed her driver to follow Adrian from a respectful distance. She expected to discover that he lived comfortably and simply valued honesty. Instead, what she witnessed broke her heart. The luxury office towers slowly disappeared behind them. Adrian boarded another bus before walking several blocks through an aging neighborhood filled with neglected apartment buildings and cracked sidewalks. He stopped at a small grocery store. Victoria watched carefully through the windshield. Instead of buying expensive food, Adrian counted a handful of coins before purchasing only bread, milk, rice, eggs, and a small chocolate bar. The chocolate wasn't for him. It was the only treat he could afford for Mason. Moments later Adrian climbed 3 flights of worn wooden stairs to an aging apartment building. Victoria quietly followed several minutes later. Through an open hallway window she saw something she would never forget. The apartment contained almost nothing. Second-hand furniture. Peeling wallpaper. A tiny kitchen with nearly empty shelves. But the room overflowed with something money could never purchase. Love. The moment Adrian stepped inside, Mason ran into his father's arms with the brightest smile imaginable. The tired man who had looked defeated only minutes earlier suddenly became a joyful father again. Victoria stood frozen outside. She saw Adrian secretly remove the landlord's eviction notice from the table before Mason could notice it. She watched him divide the groceries carefully, pretending there was plenty. Then she saw him place the chocolate bar beside his son's dinner plate while quietly drinking only water himself. Her eyes filled with tears. She realized the man who had refused $40,000 could barely afford dinner. Most people would never have known. He had hidden his suffering behind dignity. Victoria returned to her car without introducing herself. That night she couldn't sleep. Every board meeting, every business success, every charitable award suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the quiet honesty of one struggling father. The next morning she began searching through her foundation's employment programs. To her surprise, Adrian had once studied architecture before abandoning college years earlier after his own father's death forced him into full-time work. He had sacrificed every personal dream for family. Years later, he was still doing exactly the same thing for his son. Victoria decided to visit him again. Not with charity. Not with pity. But with opportunity. She arrived during daylight carrying only a folder. Inside was an offer for a full-time facilities management position at her foundation, complete with health insurance, steady income, educational benefits, and flexible hours that would allow Adrian to remain present in Mason's life. At first Adrian hesitated. Years of disappointment had taught him not to trust unexpected miracles. Victoria patiently explained that she wasn't rewarding him simply for returning the wallet. She was investing in someone whose character could inspire everyone around him. Slowly, Adrian accepted. The months that followed transformed their lives. For the first time in years, bills were paid on time. The refrigerator stayed full. Mason proudly joined his school field trip. The apartment gradually became a home instead of merely a place to survive. Yet the greatest surprise arrived almost a year later. While helping organize old foundation archives, Adrian discovered a dusty scholarship file created nearly 20 years earlier. Inside were handwritten letters from students whose education had once been funded anonymously. One letter caught his attention instantly. It carried his late wife's name. As Adrian read through fading pages, tears rolled silently down his face. Years before they had even met, Victoria's late father had secretly financed part of his wife's nursing education through the foundation. Without that scholarship, she would never have attended the hospital where Adrian first met her. Without that chance meeting, Mason would never have been born. Life had quietly connected them decades before either of them realized it. The wallet had simply completed a circle that destiny had begun years earlier. Victoria was equally overwhelmed. She understood then that kindness never truly disappears. It travels through lives like ripples across still water, touching people we may never meet until the perfect moment arrives. Years later, Adrian became director of community outreach for the foundation. Instead of merely managing buildings, he began helping struggling single parents rebuild their lives with dignity rather than dependence. Every family he helped reminded him of the day he chose honesty over desperation. Every child reminded him of Mason. And every opportunity reminded him that one small decision can echo through generations. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who still believes in kindness, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Soulful Tales 2. Your support allows these inspiring stories to reach people who may need hope today. Rose special request: in memory of every parent who sacrifices everything for their child, please comment with one word: kindness. Your single word may inspire someone who is silently fighting their own battle. As the afternoon sun bathed the city in warm golden light, Adrian walked hand in hand with Mason through the same street where everything had begun. The $40,000 had never belonged to him, but because he chose honesty over desperation, life returned something infinitely more valuable. It restored his dignity, secured his son's future, created lifelong friendships, and proved that true wealth is never measured by what we keep, but by what we choose to give back. Sometimes the greatest miracles don't begin with finding money. They begin with returning it. And sometimes, the smallest act of integrity becomes the first chapter of a life no one ever believed possible.